Hello everyone, this is Coach Carole, and today we have our second webinar in the Membership Building for Toastmasters series. Once again, we have Rae Stonehouse joining us, and this time Rae is going to focus on the effective use of Twitter. We do have a couple of tweets in the audience, and I'm very glad to have them with us today. Several more might join us, as I've sent out reminders, and sometimes people find getting into the room a little challenging. During our session today, Rae is going to look particularly at how we can use Twitter effectively as Toastmasters. But of course, it's used by loads of people all over the world as a promotional and sometimes conversational tool. You might like to start, everyone, by putting your Twitter handle straight into the text chat so that we know where to find you. And for those of you who have not yet created a Twitter account, it's always good to consider how you would like to be known in the Twitterverse. I use my own name, and I also put a year on the end of it, so I think that was when I started tweeting. I'm a latecomer to tweets. So do feel free to share your Twitter handle in there. This series is a little innovation of ours. We'd like to continue helping other Toastmasters do some of their online training from the comfort of their own desks. And we're hoping that we will do a few more of these. So let's start today with the effective use of Twitter. And I'd like to introduce Rae, who is a DTM. Now I know what that stands for, and I hope that all of you do too. But I heard a very interesting definition of that acronym by someone recently. Instead of a distinguished Toastmaster, they use it as a difficult Toastmaster. I'm sure that's not the case for Rae, who's definitely a distinguished Toastmaster and has a lot of knowledge about social media. Rae, over to you. Tell us how we can be effective tweets.
Okay, thank you, Carole. Yeah, I've never been called a difficult Toastmaster. In my case, it's usually don't time me. But probably you should time me, so we'll keep that in mind. Yes, this is a continuation of the first webinar we had, which was on membership building, excuse me, where we took an overview look of different social media platforms. In this one, we're going to be focusing on effective use of Twitter for building your membership for your Toastmaster club. So that's what everything's sort of based around. So get some quick overview of what we're going to try and cover in this quick half hour or so. I want to take a look at identifying marketing techniques, advertising versus public relations. If you were in the first webinar, you'll recognize this because it's a continuation. I'm going to take a quick look at the advantages versus the disadvantages of using Twitter, and this is based on my opinion. Some people will disagree with it, no doubt, just because it's my perspective. And we're going to just quickly discuss Toastmaster websites and how they work hand in hand with social media. Twitter being one social media platform, works with other ones. We're also going to take a quick look at Toastmasters branding and how you have to have consistency with all your social media platforms as well as your website. We're going to talk about the requirements for a social media strategy, and then we're going to be weaved through some effective use of Twitter for Toastmasters Club membership growth. So the number one strategy, we're talking about social media, but really the number one strategy to get somebody to join your Toastmasters Club is to invite them to a meeting and then ask them to join. As simple as that. It's in some ways where social media has brought us together, but in other ways it's also taken us further apart. I wrote a book on power networking for shy people, and the statistic that I found was that some 50% of Americans consider themselves to be shy. And that statistic, the number's gone up about 10% in the last 20 years. And that's due to due to electronic, it started off with Walkmans and then going to an ATM machine. You didn't have to go to the bank lineup anymore to talk to anybody. So everything in society seems to be working away from people talking and joining and talking to each other. I don't know what it's like in different parts of the world, but in my city, at the bus stop, there'd be 20 people all gathered waiting for a bus, and none of them are looking at each other because they all have their smartphones on in their earbuds. Nobody's talking to each other. So the simplest way, while social media is great, getting people out there and grabbing their attention, the simplest way, the best way is invite them to a meeting, get them to come out and talk to them. One thing that I've been promoting in Toastmasters, and especially from club officer perspective, is to think marketing and to think like a business. Now, just this past weekend, we had a new program called Blab, and I see that Ian's on this webinar, and Ian was one of the guest speakers on the Blab live broadcasting that we had, and we did go in quite a bit of in depth on that about thinking like marketing your Toastmasters club like you would a business. So thinking like a business. So some of that's going to come out in here, and thank you, Ian, for that. This gave me an awful lot to think about. Now, this originally was designed for the VP Public Relations Officer, and to think marketing, this is just something I pulled from the internet that compares advertising and it compares public relations. Well, advertising is basically what you're paying for. You're paying for what that message is to get it out there. Public relations is you put it out there and the media gets a hold of it. You don't really have any control of it. You go along for the ride and hopefully it works out well for you. You put out press releases to the media, but you don't know if they're going to do anything with it. Now, social media falls somewhere in between. You can pay for your social media, having advertising on your social media. You can also have the press pick up your social media posts that you're putting out. Just this past week, locally in my community, we had an excellent example of public relations working. A local reporter wrote an article on a fellow Toastmaster that had won a contest, humor contest. So I wrote an article on that, and a fellow Toastmaster friend of mine who used to be the editor for that particular newspaper contacted me and said that, you know, Ray, the best way to get public relations is to write a letter to the editor talking or commenting about an article that's there. So I did that, and I put in, I sent an article back in about the particular article that was written about Toastmasters. There were some inaccuracies in the article, but I didn't really focus on that. I just shared my own personal journey about Toastmasters, how it developed from there. So that was a good public relations one, and I was able to tag onto it at the end saying, here's what my club is. So that was some public relations that worked for us, and it tied into our social media. So with the new marketing strategies, social media is well within the realms of almost any do-it-yourselfer to do. I certainly would encourage Toastmasters Club to at least experiment and try and expand your reach locally to try and get some members out, especially those that are online. So the whole purpose of this presentation is based on one question. It's the same question that was on our last webinar. Should you put your time and effort into social media to attract new members to your Toastmasters Club? Simple enough question, and the answer is simple. It depends. It depends on lots of things. It depends if you have the time. It depends if you have the skill. It depends if you have the resources to do it. It depends, well, if it works. So let's take a look at the advantages to Twitter. Now, as I said in the opening, that the advantages and disadvantages that I've identified are from my perspective. Now, to put it in perspective, I've got a bit of an identity crisis. I think I have about 10 different Twitter personalities. Not that I have multiple personalities. It's related to different web properties or personas that I have. I have several Toastmasters ones. I have several for business. I have some related to my professional career as a registered nurse, related to violence in the workplace. So none of them are even close. I just have to remember all the time who I'm actually tweeting as, and being careful on how I do that. So the advantages from my perspective, from my experience, it's relatively easy for Toastmasters to set up a Twitter account for a club. I set up one the other day for a new venture that I'm doing called Talk Up Toastmasters, and probably spent less than an hour setting up the account. The other advantage is it's a good venue for raising awareness of your club in your local community. That's assuming that people locally are on Twitter. It's easy for a person, a Twitter member, to follow you. They favorite you, they follow you, and they share your tweets, hopefully. Now, another advantage for promoting your Toastmaster club locally is that most search engines will feature your Twitter profile. They'll make a comment about you. Some of them will index actual posts, but I haven't seen that a lot. I did see it for a while, but I haven't seen that for a while. So some search engines will index individual tweets. The advantages to your Twitter account is you can integrate it quite well with Facebook, YouTube, and your club webpage. Fresh content is relatively easy to create, and it's easy to create a tweet campaign. I'll talk about a tweet campaign later because it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. As you are collecting followers, in some people's mind, if you have a large follower number, some people will say that, well, it indicates social proof, because if that many people are following you, you must be worthwhile following. That's what the belief is. That's not necessarily true, because we're going to focus that here under disadvantages. So to communicate with you on Twitter, the person has to be a member of Twitter to follow you and to communicate you. I don't think somebody might correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that you can communicate with somebody that you're not directly connected to. And here's one that's kind of contentious. Follows are more likely to be worldwide rather than local. That was my experience before conversations on webinar and the last blab. So the number of followers that you have doesn't mean that all those Twitter members actually follow you or care what you post. Some of them are just following you because they're into numbers themselves, but they don't necessarily really want to follow you. It does take time to create fresh content. That's a little bit of a disadvantage if you're not used to it. And you have to be on there frequently so that you stand out among the crowd. There's millions of other Twitterers out there. So you have to keep track. You got to stand out. So that's a disadvantage. It does take considerable time and effort to create a list of followers. I find that member-to-member communication can be stilted. I find it annoying. I use a program called Hootsuite, and I'm not in there every day. I find it annoying to go in there to find out that somebody sent me a message maybe a week or so ago and I didn't see it. If it was that important, why didn't they send it to me by email? And then there's the other side of it, that you've only got 140 characters for your post, and that includes the link. I don't like the side of it that where personal conversations are taking place on Twitter that should be private. They should be, well, they shouldn't even be an email. They should be face-to-face. Like, I'd hate to get a Dear John letter on as a tweet from somebody. So those are disadvantages by my reckoning. Now, the Twitter steps for social engagement. These are the same steps that you would want for any social media platform that you're using. First off is you want to develop a strategy. What is it that you're going to do? How often are you going to send out a message? Do you want to interact with people? Are you trying to create a following? You just want people to follow you so that you've got the numbers there. It's a sharing world. To be able to create a following, you have to follow others. You have to share their message. You also have to be consistent with your brand. If you're developing a brand, we're talking about building membership within your Toastmaster club. If you have a Twitter account set up for your Toastmaster club, you probably shouldn't be sending your own personal business stuff or pictures of cats and dogs and animals that seems to be really proliferating on Facebook. If it hasn't got anything to do with Toastmasters, you probably shouldn't be doing it. One of the other things you want to do, and it applies to all your social media, is to drive traffic to your website. All of your social media platforms and your website should work together for the same message and for the same purpose. I want to touch on branding just for a moment. This is a drop-down menu pulled from the Toastmasters.org site. Of course, everybody knows a couple of years ago they did a rebranding measure, and they have a lot of stuff in there. I use a lot of the logo and design elements. I use professional images for a lot of the posters and events that I create, and that's mostly what I use there. Like it's that consistent look that your Facebook page, your Twitter header, your website, they all should be consistent. People should know right away what they're looking at, that it's your club that you're promoting. I'm also promoting that to be able to stand out from your clubs in your local area, you got to stand out as being a little bit different. Now, my club is called Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. This is some branding that I created a few years ago. This was actually the year that I made it, or I created this the year before Toastmasters did the rebranding. We had an unusual year where we ended the year with June with 20 members. We took the summer off. September came back with 6. So we had to do some major marketing and some elements that I created here. The Flying Solo, I didn't create the plane, it's clip art. The billboard I created that tied into the website that we had at the time. And the bottom part here, Flying Solo Toastmasters, created the tagline, Flying Solo but not alone. And of course all of us will know that Toastmasters.org, where leaders are made. So I think you can have different taglines that stand out. I also use another one on, like I say, I think it comes up here in the next one. The club branding, the consistency. This Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters, this is the header that we use for District 21, British Columbia, Canada, which I was the webmaster for it. So there's a consistency with our district branding. And the one below, okay, so that's a club website that I've created. So there's a consistency there with the branding. The one below with the blue and yellow and the burgundy is another color combination from Toastmasters branding. But you can see I also put another tagline in there on that particular website. This is from the Free Toast one. We put the fun in fundamentals. We put the fun in fundamentals of learning, communication, and leadership skills. So a couple of different taglines that I use just to keep our name front and center. So while we've got the individual branding of our club name, tagline, got the logo, so they're all consistency. So if you look at our Facebook, our LinkedIn profile, our Twitter profile, 2 websites, our YouTube channel, they've all got familiar branding. From a marketing perspective, you know, they say you've got to your customer has to be touched some 7 to 11 times before they make a decision. And of course I joke about when they say touching, they don't mean you're going actually out and touching them. A touch is when they see your name in writing or in print or in electronic somewhere. So when they see it over and over again 11 times, the purchasing decision isn't that they're going to join Toastmasters right away. What they're going to do is hopefully check out your club by coming out and visiting. The sale for joining your club actually takes place at the club and not online and not in social media. So your branding, the point I want to make is your branding should be consistent upon everything. Here's an example for my club, how I branded our Twitter profile. I showed you in the last scene with the Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. The billboard is one of our elements that we have that comes up. So anytime we post something to Twitter, that little Clone Flying Solo Toastmaster billboard sign comes up to the side. Now, one of the things from the get-go in branding yourself is making sure that your club name is quite clear and what your Twitter profile is. Okay, the scene I've got open here is Clone Flying Solo. There wasn't enough characters in there to fit in the word Toastmasters, but I was able to fit that in on the side on the billboard. And then you're only allowed, I think it's 12, it might be 12 or 13 characters for your actual address after the @ So @Flying Solo TM. The one I created the other day was Talk Up TM. I wasn't able to get Toastmasters, and so I got Talk Up TM. So I think that's one of the challenges, is getting that TM in there so people recognize it as a Toastmaster profile. They're going to see it by the content that you put in there, but it's part of your branding and being consistent. Your social media, you need to have a strategy, and it goes with Twitter, it goes with Facebook, any other social media platform you're using. So this is somewhat generic, but it's applicable to all your platforms. And in many ways, it's almost applicable to every presentation or every speech that you do. Under the A column, your presentation, or your social media platform should be informational. There should be a reason for people to go there. There's some news. Should be entertaining. Not necessarily dog and cat pictures. I don't really care for those, especially on Toastmaster websites. But there should be something there. I think it's good to laugh at ourselves sometime. You know, public speaking is, you know, they say one of the world's greatest fears, but there is a fun side to it, a humor side. Take advantage of those. It should be educational. If I'm following somebody on Twitter or any other social media, I want to learn something. That's what it's all about for me. I don't want to be just entertained all the time. I want to learn something. I also want it to be thought-provoking. I want to think about something. Engaging, if there's room for dialogue back and forth. In Twitter, it gets a little more challenging because you've only got 140 characters to be interactive, so that's kind of challenging. It should be timely. If you're putting up something, in our case we're talking Twitter, but if you're putting a tweet up and something's happening this week or it's in trending topics and you're commenting on now, that would be appropriate, and people would participate in that. But if you're commenting on something that happened several months ago, 6 months ago, nobody's going to follow you. It's not that important. The last one should be addictive. Now, that wasn't on the original place that I pulled it from the internet, but I think it has to be. I find that social media, if people don't have a compelling reason to come back to it, they won't. You have to have something there that they're going to want to check out. I don't have the statistic before me, but I've read a statistic that a huge percentage of people check their email like almost every 5 minutes or so at the latest. So numerous times during the day, and certainly at bedtime before going to bed, they check their email, and sometimes they get up in the middle of the night to visit the facilities, they'll check it then. So that's what you want. You want a social media strategy that is addictive, that people are going back and forth and checking you out, and hopefully they're participating and engaging too. So that's a strategy. It's challenging, trying to fit all that in. Now here's, this is, if you want to, I pulled this off of one of the Twitter profiles that I have. This is where you would type in your tweet. In Twitter, it's the words, what's happening. So you would type it in. You've got 140 characters. As you type your message in, the 140 numbers drops down. It seems kind of strange to me because I don't do a lot of actual tweeting via Twitter. I usually do mine through Hootsuite or Facebook. So I don't usually do that. So it's very rarely that I do that in Twitter, because of with the other ones that I use, I can post it to multiple social media things at the time. Trying to keep track of what this Toast Chat adds word, keep short to the point, add hashtags. Okay, I'm not too sure how she did that on my slide, but way to go. Now,
my apologies, Ray. I couldn't resist popping that straight onto the whiteboard there.
yeah, no, that's okay. I thought that's kind of neat. Now, one of the things that I recommend is connecting your Facebook page to your Twitter account. I tend to use Facebook more than Twitter. Now, how you would do that is you open up your Facebook page to your Club Toastmaster page, or any page that you want to hook up to a Twitter account, and in another tab you open up your Twitter profile. And I don't have the exact directions in front of me, but I think you go back to the Facebook page. So your Facebook would be something like http // facebook.com Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters / Twitter. And that would bring up a new page that allows you to connect to your Facebook page to any of your Twitter accounts. So I've talked about that on several different calls so far, and we talked about it on, I was saying not to hook up your Twitter to Facebook. You can do that. You can do that within Twitter in your profile session, in your settings, your section. You can set it up so that your Twitter goes to Facebook. My only concern is if you happen to be doing a campaign where you're sending up or setting up, prearranging, scheduling multiple tweets, if you tweet everything to your Facebook, you could bombard your Facebook line or timeline and get people annoying. Now, I know we talked about this at length on Talk Up Toastmasters. I know Ian's on the call here, and he was saying that, I'm paraphrasing Ian, that if you're using Twitter as your main source to communication, there would be advantage to linking up your Twitter to your Facebook, so the reverse of what I'm saying. Just haven't, yes, he says he agrees with that. I haven't done it yet, but I think back to when it was originally started, I can remember people just bombarding the LinkedIn timeline. So we're getting all these tweets. And at the time, people were tweeting motivational quotes and things like that. So I just found that annoying. But I find it good working the other way. But what I want to focus on here is the slide that you have before you there. Okay, these are some of we talk about collecting content that you can repost. I collected all the 90 tips from Toastmasters International and I posted them. Now, when you put the address, the URL in, and when you grab it, it'll post your slide, but it won't necessarily post the text. So if you get the text, like in this one here, it says capture the audience's attention by asking a good question. What happens is when it goes from your Facebook to your Twitter page, it'll post that to Twitter. Now in this case, this is an example of a different slide, but here the basic content of your closing should restate the main points. This was from another slide, but it connected that, so it took my original Facebook message, posted it onto Twitter, gave the URL at the end, the shortened URL in, so somebody clicked on it, then go back to my Facebook page. So all these things are interconnected. So that if somebody wanted to retweet this tweet, it will give extra access to the Facebook page, which also draws attention to the club. Or sorry, your club page. This is another campaign that I did on Facebook, same idea. So this was a quote from Dr. Ralph Smedley, founder of Toastmasters International. So originally posted to Facebook and carried through to Twitter. This is another idea here about polishing up a presentation. So that same, once again, to Facebook, that top line posted again onto Twitter. I don't have the numbers here, but how many times it was retweeted, but that's really what you want, is you want people to retweet what you're doing. I took a different slant on quotations and educational moments. I have a list of some 150 different educational moments that I collected, and I posted these to the Facebook page. Now, how I collect these is when I read a book, when I read a book related to public speaking, I'll have my smartphone beside me with the voice recorder, and if there's a sentence in there that I think is pretty good, so this sentence, it's a good idea to repeat and paraphrase, so I would have repeated that and typed it out into my list. So when I put it onto Facebook, above this on the actual Facebook posting would be the top line, so that would get taken over to Twitter and tweeted out. So there's still that interconnectivity. Now this is an example that Ian says he's against this. I think there's advantage to it if you do it occasionally, especially if you're trying to build up a following. So Hootsuite, if you're not familiar with it, is it's a standalone third-party social media program, I guess you'd say, that allows you to monitor and administer multiple social media platforms. I have Hootsuite Pro. Cost me about $7-8 Canadian per month, and I think it gives me access to monitor about 100 different social media platforms. It also allows you to bulk upload your messages. In this case, I uploaded all the educational moments that I used in those slides before, so that they would be tweeted every 2 hours on this one. So it's kind of spammy in some ways. I will admit to that. It is spammy, but I think when you're trying to start off your profile and get attention and try and stand out from the other social media, well, all the coming through on the Twitter feed, having something grab people's attention, there could be value to it. So you spread it out. It's not interactive, and I say it could be spammy, but I think there might be advantage to doing it once. I haven't done it for a while, because, well, now I'm more engaged, I guess. Here's something I only started using recently, and I found, I'm not even sure if I was aware of it, but I'm familiar with Google Analytics. I use Facebook Analytics quite a bit. There's also Twitter Analytics. So this is the Twitter Analytics for my club, Kelowna Flying Solo Toastmasters. So when you first off, you click on Profile, and the little graphic there, your portrait, I guess you'd say. On this sign, it was Toastmasters. You click on that, takes you another one to another with the red arrow is your analytics, and that loads up these sections here. It's not as detailed as the Facebook one, but there's some interesting information there. So in this case, this is focusing on September. I guess it was done on the 21st, so there's 21 days. It goes back 28 days. The amount of tweets that I had posted on there was down 36% over the previous period, yet my impressions were up 16%. I'm not too sure how that worked. Followers were up 14, so that's, I would like it to go below 4. Profile visits, so 79 people checked out the profile, so those are potential people checking out the club, and 4 mentions, so that's good. Now, one thing I wanted to fit in here, and that backtracking a little bit, I had said originally under disadvantages for Twitter that most of your Twitter followers would be worldwide, and rather than local, and that was based on the way that I was doing it at the time. I find that if you follow somebody, they will usually follow you back. There's something called the theory of reciprocity, or principle of law of reciprocity. You do something for somebody, they feel the need to make things even, so they follow you. Well, if you're targeting people from around the world, your Twitter range is going to be around the world. So in our conversation on Talk Up Toastmasters, Ian brought up the point from a marketing perspective. If you are and I'm paraphrasing Ian so you can jump in, if you're somewhat selective in who you follow, if you follow a local demographic of people that would fit into your ideal Toastmaster Club member, and you follow them and they follow you back, you've got a good relationship with them. So you have a list of followers that are your target market. And then Ian also provided that marketers, that paid marketers that want to take it to the next step, they will research each individual follower, find out who they are, find out contact information. Then once they got that contact information, drop that into a database or a spreadsheet and upload it into a mass email drip marketing system, so that if somebody checked you out on Twitter, obviously they're interested in you. Probably they might be interested in your club information, and they would be interested in receiving email information from you. I haven't tried that yet. I think it's an interesting concept. It seems like a lot of work, but making things work, I think it could. I also commented that, no, I didn't comment actually. I made comment in the webinar in the Talk Up Toastmasters that I didn't think there really was value in using Twitter for Toastmasters communicating. For one, I don't think you can communicate much in 140 characters. Two, I don't think you can much with a worldwide following. However, as Ian said, with a target market, we also had on the last webinar a college university student from my district, so I'm assuming she was significantly younger than I am. She was saying that younger people are not using Facebook for communication as much or anymore. They are using Twitter. They're in class, they're tweeting each other. So if you want to draw a younger member into your club, you have to be using the social media platform that they are, and they are using Twitter. So getting back to, should you use Twitter for gaining club membership? I'd say yes if you got the time. I'd say yes if you've got the inclination to do it and the skills to do it. I say yes if you're trying to attract a younger person. I'd say no if you're in a small community, rural. I don't think it really matters if you're in Australia or Canada. Same rules apply. If we joke, if they just got electricity in the town, they're certainly not going to be on Twitter. So the short answer is it depends. And just finishing this off here, the analytics. That's just a recap of individual days that were there. So 1,694 tweet impressions. I think that's good. I'd like to see it certainly a lot more. Profile visits are good. 17 new followers, comparing August to September. So the stats are there. I think it's, what you measure. I can't even remember what the saying is, but what gets measured gets noticed. So if you think you're doing something, check your analytics. So I think that's what the part of the secret is. It tells you you think you're doing something and it looks good, but if nobody's following you, same thing goes. That's basically all I wanted to talk about. I'm assuming we have less some time for questions here, and I've been trying to read through the chat line on the side, and it keeps taking my concentration away. So I'll go through there to see if there's any comments in there.
Let me do that for you, Ray. That's my job. It's just really hard to present and to keep your eye on all the questions and comments. Certainly you have stirred up lots of interest, and there has been many, many different comments and questions. And I asked one early, and I think that Ian answered it quite well, because I was intrigued to know as to why did they choose 140 characters for tweets. And Ian has replied to say that it's based on the SMS limits. So that's an interesting one that you might want to comment on. And the second one that I had for you was, if you are encouraging Toastmaster clubs to set up a Twitter handle or name for their club, how do you ensure that it will be continued by someone else? Because to me that one's not so sure about whether it would be continued. So they're my two ones, if you want to answer those, and then we'll see if others would like to comment.
Yeah, that follow through, that not only applies to Twitter, it applies to your Facebook page, it applies to your web page. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how the best way to answer that one would be. That's the problem. I talk about that in Toastmasters with our club officer training. You never run a business the way we run our clubs. We train our executive all year long. Just when they finally figure out what they know they're doing, we fire them, and then we bring new ones in. So the same thing that goes for the public relations aspect of the job. There's a lot of different skills that you need in there. Beside the whole social media, there's all the conventional public relations, and there's quite a bit of skill set in there. I had that years ago when I did my high performance leadership project. The area that I was in, I was area governor at the time, and from a high performance leadership project, they created a new area. So I called it was Area 39, the old one, Area 39, the new one. So my project was the new Area 39. So what I did was I created a district council. I took out a membership at the local Chamber of Commerce. I had monthly meetings of all the 7 clubs in my area, and we did strategy, we did planning, we did education. But at the end of my year, my replacement dropped it. Didn't want anything to do with it at all. So any of the website or anything that I developed just went by the wayside. I felt the same thing when I became district webmaster for District 21. I did that. I took over that role basically when I was the Lieutenant Governor of Education and Training. Then District Governor, I put my fingers into it. Then I kept it for about 8 years after that. So that's how I kept the continuity going. I've just been replaced from that recently, and they're going to be going with a brand new website, so my baby's going to be shut down. So I did keep the continuity going there. But I'm also the social media person, been the social media person for the district. So the Twitter account's in my name, the YouTube is in my name. I'm on the Facebook, it's not in my name, so there's continuity there. We got control of it. Our Facebook for our district was grassroots and not run by the district. So I think the same thing runs by the club. I think the best way to do it is bring people along with you, stay involved. You don't necessarily have to be the main person, but you can. The thing with Twitter, though, is you have to share the same password. And that's something to consider. You want a password that's generic enough that you can pass it from year to year. So if I post, if Carole and I are both sharing the same password, it'll still come across that one of us is posting it. So you do have to be careful of that. So I think to pull people along with you. As far as the SMS limits, I don't really have the knowledge to be able to comment on that. That's beyond my technology.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Rae. There's lots of questions, I'm sure, that are still in our minds, and I'm really keen to hear from Bonnie. If your mic is still on. As a new person coming into Twitter.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I was interested in your comments about what you've learned so far about using Twitter.
I thought it was interesting that you can connect it both to your website and to Facebook. I thought it was interesting how you could really irritate some of the people who are connected with you, depending on how you do it, and so being educated in how you do it would be a benefit. When you said that people have to share the password, that probably made me uncomfortable. because in part I don't understand it, in part I think you're saying that if it's a Toastmaster club and you've got multiple administrators, that's when that would happen. Yes?
Yes, that's true. Yes. Yep, that's true. So you make it generic enough. You don't do any of your own personal information.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much for your feedback there, Bonnie. I'm interested also in Edward's postings there about the way in which he uses Twitter, and I like the one where you've said you use it to direct people back to your blog, and then you've gone on to say that you can tweet from within EasySpeak, which, for those who are not sure, EasySpeak is an online automated club management system. I'm not sure if you'd like to speak to that, Edward. You did say you were listening only today, and I'm not sure if you're in a position to use your mic.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
That link that I provided is a graphic, and what it does, it shows a blog entry in EasySpeak, and below that blog entry, a list of social media tools. And if you click on the More button, EasySpeak, actually you can connect to almost 300 social media links with EasySpeak, Twitter being one of them.
Fantastic. I'm going to try it. Thanks, Edward. And Ian, do you have some comments that you would like to make about the best use of Twitter for Toastmasters?
I could talk Valerie on out.
You've got 5 minutes.
I'll just make a quick one back to Rae before talking generally. Just Rae, look through the chat comments around what I said regarding bulk loading in Hootsuite. I'm all for it as long as it's not the same image over and over, and that's what we stumbled across in that blab.
Okay, I'm just going through the timeline looking for it. Okay, that's a good point.
And just to give people an idea of how you can socially engineer distribution of your tweets to a local area. A couple of years ago, I was let's put it this way, I've been the tweeter for our district ever since Twitter started until this year. And so I've got a fair familiarity with how to use it, particularly at a district level, which is arguably much bigger reach than any club would want to do. But one of the things I was able to do when I'm representing the district is to socially engineer the event that I did in around about 2010. I think we were in Adelaide that year, and one of the things I did was generate a conversation with the hotel where the convention was at. And you can imagine that if I'm tweeting that Toastmasters is having a fantastic convention at their venue, the venue was quite disposed to retweet that to everyone that followed them. So you can use that local community entity to reach lots of people in that community. People who frequent hotels, people who are basically business travellers, who would have all got an insight into what Toastmasters is doing through me talking up that local venue. Now, either a big hotel, I think it was the Hilton or something like that, and they're the sorts of people you can engage via Twitter. It's just one of the many strategies where you can include others in the conversation to speak on your behalf.
Absolutely, Ian. And you are a leader in that field. I look up to you. And I'm still learning about how best to use Twitter. And, I'm looking at the point that Edward made that doesn't use Twitter for his local Toastmaster club as it's in a low population area. But it could well be suited for other rural areas such as mine, where we want more information about any of the clubs in regional Victoria. So I'm still thinking about that one. So what I wanted to finish up with today, just to take the tweets to the next level, I felt that next to being able to tweet, retweet, and collect and promote inside Twitter and perhaps with another social media tool like Facebook, you might like to consider how you can embed your tweet chats into a website. And I've just used mine as an example today. And thank you, Ian, for jumping on so quickly today, so that it filled up that little Toast chat quite well. So on my blog site for CoachCarole.net, I've embedded the Toast chat. And the way I did that was to use the widget settings inside my Twitter account, where I could then go and set it up. I could search for the term #ToastChat and set the theme, and there's only two, there's either a light or a dark theme, and the height and the width of it, and then it would then appear on my website using my WordPress widgets to put it in place. So that meant that throughout this whole session today, anyone who was looking at my website, CoachCarole.net, would have seen the flowing Toast chat. It's not a difficult thing to do, but I had to remind myself how to do it. It's not something I do frequently.
Can I just add something to that, Carole, while you've got that screen there?
Sorry?
Can I just add something to that while you've got that screen there?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, please do.
I was just bringing attention. Can you just go back so that panel is front and center again? Just to everyone's attention, one of the things that Carole was doing prior to this session was tweeting that the event was coming up. And what you see there on the screen is that her tweet reminded me that this event was on, and what I craftily did was inserted #Toastmasters in there. And one of the reasons I did that is that you'll see that that top tweet has been retweeted by Toastmasters RT. And what that means is that it didn't just go to the people that follow me, it's people who are active in Twitter in Toastmasters know that that Toastmasters RT account retweets most things with #Toastmasters in it. So in the last 15 minutes before we went live, I'd be guessing, I can actually check it, Toastmasters RT has, let me just check, Toastmasters RT has something like, wait for it, 314 followers. They are 314 people that aren't connected to me. So I was able to reach out to far more people, present this session to people around Toastmasters without even friending them, without even connecting with them, without being a tweet with them. So next time when we're promoting something, let's push it out like that, and Toastmasters around the world will get it. And we also need to educate more Toastmasters to follow Toastmasters RT. Let's pick up everything as a #Toastmasters hashtag.
Here's the question for you, Ian. Something weird. I've got two screens here, and I thought I was logged into Twitter @ToastChat, yet I'm not seeing any of yours there at all. Is there a secondary? Can a Twitter profile have the exact same name? Like I'm looking at a #ToastChat brackets a G Vaughn.
Yes, there's no, let's say, a hashtag is not a reserved word.
Okay, because here I had it live on my second screen here, waiting to see nothing was coming up. Yet when I did a search on it, I thought I had the right one. That's interesting.
No, no, I found that too, Ray, that it had to be just Toast Chat, not with the bracketed name. Someone else had claimed it some time ago, back in August, I think. Anyway, I'm just conscious of the time, and I don't want to drag it past the hour. Ian, you've been asked to explain the difference between the @ symbol and the .@ symbol. Can you do that for us now?
By all means, Carole. One of the things that Ray mentioned, Ray was talking, and actually Edward mentioned that Twitter is very public, and it is very public. And to that reason, recently Twitter has changed a couple of things. The first is that direct messaging is now much more secret. It used to be very public. So that's one area where you can have a private conversation. But the second area they've changed it is that when you mention somebody, such as with an @ sign, for example, if I tweeted right now and said, @Carole, ready for your session, then everybody in the Twitterverse can see that. However, if I put @ something, I can restrict it to people that only follow her and me.
Mm.
That
makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. Thank you for that tip. That's a great one.
And it will improve over time. And the second thing that Edward's mentioning, and I mentioned it as well, I mentioned it before, there are two tools that make it really easy to manage tweet chats. One is twubs.com and one is tweetchat.com. And the beauty of those, Twubs is more mature, it's a bit more professional. You can actually almost own a hashtag, but what that really means is you can get some little bit of extra data, a little bit of extra control over your hashtag, but really anybody can do it because Twitter is very open. But with TweetChat and Twubs, the beauty of them is you can just see your tweet chat and it adds the hashtag for your tweet chat automatically. So you don't need to keep adding #ToastChat every time you think to tweet in the tweet chat. It does it for you and just shows all of the things using that hashtag at the time.
Do you think Do you think they're better than Hootsuite, or are they an add-on to it, or different?
They're different. They're just a website that, like in Hootsuite, you can filter by #whatever, right? By Toast Chat today. And so, yes, you do see a feed of the tweet chat. But if you then tweet, you've got to remember to add #ToastChat. Whereas if you use either of these tools, it adds it for you automatically. You don't have to even think about it.
I'll check them out. Sounds interesting.
Really simple, nothing complex. And there's the Twubs one is actually a formal business that makes money off the back end of it. So yeah, they're just useful tools for Joe Blogs to use Twitter.
Thank you so much, Ian. That is brilliant. And thank you so much for contributing, all of you today, into this webinar number 2, Smart Use of Social Media. We will be doing another webinar on October 17. It's another Saturday, and the focus there will be on Facebook. So if you would like to contribute to that, please let me know. Rae will be here, I will be here, and we will continue with our series. I'll finish up by saying thank you to everyone, and if you want more information, you'll always find us on Online Training for Toastmasters, or at thesmore.com, which is my online flyer. And of course, anytime you want to talk with me, you can find me on coachcarole.net or email me. Thanks everyone for attending. I will thank you again, Rae, for your presentation.
You're welcome.
And I'll now close the recording.